And we're joined now by the Director of Content for EP Rinkside Elite Prospects. It is Mr. Cam Robinson, and we find him in London, Ontario at the Top Prospects game. How are you, Cam?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's we're having a good time over here, chatting with the kids, and we're saying off air there are probably 15 or 20 first-round picks are going to be here this week in London and Oshawa, so we'll get a first-hand look and a little Canadian versus USA battle. It should be fun.
More on that later in the interview, but we start with the Vancouver Canucks, as we always do, Mr. Robinson. And I'm interested because I'm going to guess Kiefer Sherwood didn't get a lot of scouting buzz way back when, and yet here he is playing right wing on the Vancouver Canucks top line with Elias Pettersson and absolutely flourishing. What have you made of Sherwood's ascendancy? And is it sustainable the way he's going?
I mean, it's a great story. I mean, this is a kid who put up big numbers growing up, as most of NHLers do, right? But he even played like a big role in the AHL. And so he has experience playing top line, top six, seeing some power play time here and there on the way up. So he knows how to handle it. But what I've been really impressed with is that he hasn't really changed his game all that much. Like, he's still out there throwing all those hits, but he's not chasing them. Right? He's not being like, I need to just go bang everything that moves. He's doing it in a smart way, but he's got the speed, he's got the physicality, and he's got enough playmaking and finishing ability to be able to handle playing with skilled players. And like, my goodness, that top line has really found some chemistry. They're dominating the shot share. They're dominating, the scoring, the possession. They're doing everything you want. Small sample, obviously. So we'll be looking to see if that can maintain even a semblance of that level long term here. But I mean, with Miller out, with Besser out, now Besser coming back in, it's been something that the team has desperately needed.
Never mind the scoring. How about the physicality? Like, he's doing extra squats and bench presses every time he makes that hit along the glass. He's picking up a 200-pound player and pressing him up again. He's doing that a lot more than everybody else on the ice. Doesn't that add up? Like, doesn't he hit a wall at some point?
I mean, he's doing that more than anybody in the league, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's and yeah, I mean, it is going to, I guess it's going to wear him down, but it seems like he's wearing everybody else down, and he's still looking strong and spry out there. So, he's been doing his squats. He's been following the Jaromir Jagr trains, maybe 1,000 a day since he was 9. We'll have to ask him. But I think that he can maintain this level of play as long as he's doing it in a smart way. And like I mentioned, not chasing those hits, but letting them come naturally and organically, and then making the plays, right? Like, is that now you're playing on a top line? It's like your number one job is he's going to be out there to be the retrieval guy, to do all the dirty work, but also to make some plays as well too, right? Everybody's going to crowd around Pettersson. That's going to open up ice for him, and he's using that ice to play make and to drive into holes and to pierce into the middle of the ice. It's all gravy right now, and we'll see if it can keep rolling.
Just help me out. If he had the tools and he had the production, how does a guy like that go undrafted and bounce around 3 organizations, Cam?
I mean, it takes some players longer to really kind of get it, right? And so this is obviously the best stretch of hockey that he's played in his professional career. But it's sometimes it's just one of those things that guys, it clicks a little bit later on. He had the tools, he had the speed, but it just didn't all piece together at the right time, especially when you're 17, 18 years old. There are those guys that it just looks like, that skill set isn't going to lend itself to being an NHLer. And that's what it looked like. He was probably going to be an AHL or maybe a Euro Pro or something like that. And he's just kept on ticking along, kept on taking those steps. But I mean, if you're Nashville, you're probably a little disappointed in yourself, because it looks like it's about $100K was what the difference was, is that they didn't want to pay him. And they could sure use Kiefer Sherwood right now, but they're lost Vancouver's game.
Do you think it matters to Elias Pettersson? Do you think it matters that he's not a brand name player? That he's got DeBrusque there, so he does have a brand name player. Do you think he cares that it's not a pedigree player alongside him?
No, I don't think so. You want effective players, right? Yeah. Do you think the Sedin's worried about Burrows? This kid played in the coast. We don't want to play with him. No, I think you play with guys that mesh well, and it isn't always a first round pick. It isn't always a 50-goal score that's going to work, right? Sometimes you want that chemistry. Going all the way back to like playing NHL '94 as a kid on Super Nintendo, you need that grinder, you need that playmaker, you need that finisher, right? You got to get that chemistry.
Skinny guy, short guy.
Cam's there in coach GM mode, editing his lines, so he's got all of that. Attaboy. The other end of the roster right now, and who would have thunk this? Nils Höglander, Cam. Plays just 8 minutes and 38 seconds against the Senators. That's the second time. It's a season low. And that's the second time in 6 games where he dips below 10 minutes of ice time. What are you seeing or not seeing from Nils Hoglander these days?
We're not seeing any urgency to his game. It's a big issue, and that's got to be the bread and butter, right? That's got to be what Kiefer Sherwood is doing, right? That jam, that ability to go and make things happen, not letting things come to you necessarily, but just going and inflicting something on the game and kind of starting to push your will onto players. And we're just not seeing that. We're obviously seeing the confidence is low and getting lower with each passing game. I'm a little surprised you didn't get the scratch tonight and they're pulling Sasson out instead. But they need him. You know, as the kid scored 24 goals last year, they need those goals down the lineup. They need him to be a player that can move up and down the lineup and be a useful bit part and kind of get guys going, which is what he did last year. He was a bit of a spark plug, right? You put him on a different line and he could get him going. And he is just not finding that this year. And I think it's between the ears. Personally, it's one of those things that he's still a younger player. He thought he was maybe fully out of the doghouse and it was going to be smooth sailing, and it's not. And now he's got to find a new level. He's got to dig deep and he's got to pull himself out. And I think that this is, tonight's game, he's got to show up because he might be sitting in the press box if he doesn't.
Is it time to trade him? Would you be worried about the asset value sinking from here?
I mean, if you were going to trade him, like for a defenseman, let's say, you should have done it in the offseason. When the value was high. I mean, you could have hoped that it would have continued to climb and that you would have had that piece to use this year, but it's not. I'm not a fan of selling low on a player. Now, if the deal is right and you feel like you're getting value for a young, middle six winger who can score 20, 25 goals, then sure, move him for an asset that you could use right now that's better served, maybe on the blue line. But I wouldn't just be selling him just for selling him in case it falls even further. Because if that's the case, it's like, well, maybe you'll get a 4th rounder like Pod Colson got a couple of years ago, in a couple of years, I should say. So no, I wouldn't probably be pushing to move him. But if his name comes up in trade negotiate or in trade talks, then you see where it goes.
But you're right. He should be shot out of a cannon tonight because he has to know he's number 12 on the rankings. And if he doesn't move his way up the rankings, he's the one coming out tomorrow. Although that can be detrimental for a guy like Hoglander, don't you think? Where his over-exuberance can put him out of position sometimes too. So he'll have to be smart. The other line of curiosity, never mind that he stays in and Sasson comes out, is that Brock Besser is going to be on the lost parts and missing things line because there's just nobody suitable for him for a top 6 assignment. So he gets Teddy Bluger and Denton Heinen.
Yeah. I mean, it's they're going to have to ease him back in a little bit, and they don't want to mess with that top line, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. They don't want any part of messing with that line. They don't want to mess with Joshua and Garland. They're getting Joshua up to speed and keeping that chemistry together. So it's just like without Miller, where are you going to put Besser, right? And so you just hope that he can come back in, the legs will be there, and maybe the scoring touch can still be there because he was clicking pretty well before he came out, right? Like he was one of the most consistent goal scorers on the team. So you hope that he can find that, generate a little bit, and then finish this road trip up, hopefully get Miller back and then regain that second top 6 line for him. And then hopefully everyone can get rolling at the same time, right? That's what we're looking for. I don't know if we've had a game where everybody's been clicking at the same time, right? And we're pushing into December now. It's about time.
Max Sasson has made his National Hockey League debut. He had a point in Ottawa. The family story is fantastic, as per usual, with the first NHL game. Give us the scouting report there, Cam. What do you see right now? What could he be, and where's he going to have to fit as a National Hockey Leaguer?
Fun story, right? Coming out of college, he was highly recruited coming out of there. A good number of teams, 10, 15 teams were all knocking on the door. Vancouver got him. He's a two-way guy. He plays smart with the possession. I loved to see him get that point there the other night with Pops in the stands, just fist pumping and getting fired up. That was a great story. He's worked on some pace things, right? The pace issue a little bit as a transition into the pro game. Had himself a really strong season in the A last year. Productive. The production down a little bit more, but I think he's more finding his game in that defensive role, which is what he is going to have to be at the NHL level, right? He's not going to be a guy that you're looking to push 15, 20, 25 goals. He's going to be someone who can maybe kill penalties for you, play down the lineup, move around a little bit, be a bit, versatility down there, but just someone that you can rely upon. And I think, like I said, like I'm a little surprised that it's him coming out of the lineup, because I thought he played really well in a very muted role there the other night. He only played 7 or 8 minutes, but he looked good in the situations that he had. And I don't think this is the last that we see him. We could see him, like we said, we could see him tomorrow night too, especially if Hoglander has a poor outing.
They played him on the wing. Is he a natural center? Does he fit in the NHL down the middle?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. I think that he can be a versatile guy. I think he can play down the middle. I think he can win faceoffs with some consistency. I think he can play on the wing if you have someone who's locked into that 4C spot. So he's a useful bit part that you can move around in all 3 forward positions probably.
I'm not going to say that he's escaped prospect status yet, but that's his modus operandi, is to put that title behind him. You're in London, and you don't have a penchant for hotel art, folks. He's on the road. The fine pieces behind you there. And you've got your eye on pretty much the entire first round when you look at the talent that's assembled there. I got to ask you about Michael Misa, because he's setting all sorts of records, on pace for all sorts of records in the OHL, and yet liters per second spilled on Michael Misa seems a little lower than on previous record-setting prospect runs here. Is there something to that? Am I just not reading it in the right places? Like it feels like he's not getting Celebrini, Bedard, or pick your favorite prospect before that kind of shine.
Especially because he had exceptional status, right, Cam?
He did. Now that I think plays a bit of a role in this, is that he had exceptional status and he was excellent as a 15-year-old. Like, I'm pretty sure he outproduced McDavid. I'd have to go back and check out the metrics on it, but I'm fairly certain he outpaced McDavid as a 15-year-old. Then last year didn't take that step forward. Everyone expected him to really blow up. Saginaw, they were going to host the Mem Cup. They were like, this is going to be the Michael Misa show. Was good, but not excellent. But then as the season wore on into that Memorial Cup, he really started to elevate his game. And now this year, the numbers speak for themselves. Not only is he scoring at a goal per game, 2 points per game. I tweeted this out the other day. In the last 40 years in the OHL, the only 2 guys to score in their draft year at a goal a game and 2 points a game were Patty Kane and Eric Lindros. And Michael Misa is on that pace right now. So you're absolutely right. He's not probably getting the hype that he should be with his production. Really speed-driven kid, 6'1", so he's got fine size. He brings it all: goal scoring, playmaking. He's got a little jam to his game too. I think if anyone's really going to steal James Hagen's spot at the top there, it's going to be Michael Misa, because they're similar players, but he's a little bit bigger and a little bit faster. And then, you add in that piece of that pedigree that he has, being an exceptional status kid, is that he's going to make teams think about it. There's a couple guys that could get in there, depending on who's picking, a kid like Roger McQueen, the big 6'5" center, or a kid like Matt Schaefer, who's going to be a dynamic, probably top number 1 D. So it depends on who's picking where, but Misa right now, if you had to push me, I'd probably say is number 1.
Wow. It is quite a derby for first overall in the 2025 entry draft. I think you probably have to go back to Slavkovsky to find as many candidates or some non-consensus, if you will, for the first overall pick. And you didn't even mention what's his name? Martoni.
Porter Martoni. 6'3", power winger. He's a player as well. And so, talking about those numbers that Misa's been doing, Martone's been clicking at damn nearly that pace all season long as well. His goal totals are a touch behind, but he's still playing at nearly 2 points a game, playing for the Steelheads, playing with Luke Misa, the brother of Michael Misa, the Calgary Flames draft pick. So he's an excellent player and, leader. He's captaining this team at the CHL game. He's a captain there in Brampton. He captained the U18 team and put up a ton of points there last year in Finland. So all this kid does is produce. And I think, firmly in the conversation for 2-3. We'll see if, because he's on the wing, if he can actually get into that conversation at 1.
So Misa's a centerman for you. I've seen him listed as both, but you think he's going to be a center when it's all said and done?
I think so. And I mean, I'm pretty sure he leads the OHL in faceoff wins this year too. Like he's good in the draw. He can, like I said, he can penetrate into the middle, pierce through that. He can, I think he's a centerman long-term for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Well, you're right in your wheelhouse there. Enjoy the prospects, Cam. Thank you for this, and we will catch up next week, buddy.
Appreciate it, guys. Talk to you soon.